My name is Ferne Bork. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Landmark College, and I'm also the mom of an alum. So I come at this from a couple of different and both very important angles. I want to give you a little bit of housekeeping first. We will be recording, but the recording will be focused on the speaker view, so you won't be seen unless you're speaking. For those of you who are likely to want to have really lots of notes, know that both the slides themselves will be available to you after this session, and so will a recording. I am going to take questions throughout the presentation, so if questions pop up, please put them in the chat. Amy has graciously agreed to give me the questions during the presentation itself, and then I'll take more afterwards. If for any reason we have so many questions that I don't get to yours, my contact information will also be posted in the chat. So please feel free to get in touch with me after this morning's session, and we can continue the conversation and address your questions. And finally, one last bit, there is live captioning available this morning. And if you would like to use that, at the bottom of your screen where there are a number of icons, all the way to the right is one that says more. It has 3 dots. And if you click on that, you will be able to enable the closed captioning. So with that, I will get started. Before I actually bring up my slides, I am going to tell you a little bit more about me and about the reason I offer this presentation. The presentation is really inspired by my son, Aaron, who is now 29 years old. He was diagnosed with ADHD and executive function challenges while he was still in grade school. And the impact of that learning difference was really, really clear. While it didn't create challenges for him in terms of taking in information, it did create a lot of challenges in terms of output, in doing homework, planning long-term assignments, initiating a piece of homework activity, writing an essay. And that segues very nicely to my role, which I would sit Aaron down after school, after he'd had a break, and I would stand over him. I would make sure the homework got done, make sure it got handed in. It was early in 2010. He was a junior. He was starting to explore college. And in sheer horror, I realized what I had done. By becoming Aaron's executive functioning, by taking that over entirely, I had essentially guaranteed that he would not develop any of that skill on his own. So I knew that he was going to need real support to develop those kinds of skills and others in college. With that in mind, I took him to an open house at Landmark, where in very short order, I realized we'd found the perfect place. And for those of you who are parents here, you won't be surprised to learn that Aaron was equally sure that we had not. But he did agree to a compromise. And so he attended Landmark's summer high school program that July, mostly to be able to present me with all the reasons why Landmark was a terrible place and why he wouldn't be going. But it didn't work. He fell in love with the campus, the way we teach, and also being part of a community in which everybody got it, everybody understood, was amazing for him. So Aaron attended Landmark from 2011, earned his associate's degree in 2013, and then transferred to American University. I'm telling you all this not because I think Landmark is the perfect place for every student who has a learning difference. It isn't. But because of Aaron's journey and our journey as a family, I came to understand just how important it is to find the right college for neurodiverse students. Now, you could say that it's important for every student, and you'd be right. But I think in the case, particularly of students who learn differently, it can be the difference between successfully earning that degree or turning their back on college, thinking they're not cut out for college. When just as often or more often, the truth is that they weren't cut out for the college that they're attending. So I put together this presentation to equip students and families with the knowledge, the questions to have a good college search that results in a good fit. So with that, I am going to share my slides with you. So what I'm going to be talking about is navigating the college search for students who learn differently. Albert Einstein said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And so it is, I think, with our neurodiverse learners. They are likely to compare themselves often and frequently unfavorably to their neurotypical peers, as though they weren't as intelligent or as capable. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There is growing evidence and emerging research telling us that the cognitive traits we group under the heading of neurodiversity represent adaptive strengths in many contexts. Those contexts include the business world, the arts, technology, and STEM. Certainly, they present challenges as well, but in the right setting, with the right support, these traits can also enable students to flourish and contribute in ways that traditional learners may not. The key words here are right setting, right support. So how do you determine what that support really looks like for a particular student? That's actually the reason that I encourage people to start out the college search as an inner journey, not one of gathering information. Students should be asking themselves the really important questions. Who am I? What do I want to get from my college years? What kind of setting do I learn best in? What kind of learner am I? There are visual learners, auditory learners, and there are learners who learn by doing. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? But most important, what are the accommodations and support I need to best ensure my chance of success? The numbers tell a very interesting story. In high school, 94% of students who have a learning difference are receiving assistance. And despite that, roughly about 20% of these students go on to use the resources available to them in college. While there are reasons for that, and I'll get into them a little bit later, we can see in college outcomes the impact of that. Nationally, fewer than 60% of all students, neurotypical and neurodiverse, actually end up earning the degree that they're pursuing, and only about a third of neurodiverse students. I know that sounds frightening, but the good news is that there are things students can do that dramatically change the outcome. We know that students who disclose early and start receiving support right from the beginning have a higher GPA and a higher rate of success. And on the other hand, one study done at a large state university found that students who waited until after their first year to request accommodations had 3.5 times the risk of not graduating within 6 years. So improve those odds, access and utilize support. You will find that there are varying levels of support available in post-secondary education. I think of it in terms of a pyramid, and at the base of that pyramid are all 4,300 or so institutions of higher ed, all required by law, by the Americans with Disabilities Act, to provide accommodations. Accommodations designed to provide equal access to students with disabilities. The accommodations themselves vary from institution to institution. So it's critically important that you align what a particular college offers with the accommodations that a student is looking for. There is a smaller subset of colleges that, in addition to accommodations, offer some beyond access kinds of support, some skill building, things like coaching, advising, study skills classes, executive function support. Students who have this additional kind of support built into their programs also succeed at a higher rate. So climbing that pyramid again, there are traditional colleges throughout the country, more and more all the time, that have within them structured learning support programs for students who learn differently. Now, these programs can be designed for students with one particular learning difference or for students with a broad range. But these are more comprehensive programs. They focus a lot on skill building rather than simply remediation. Many of them also operate on a fee-for-service kind of a structure. So it's important, if you're looking at this kind of a program, to really reflect on every service that your student might possibly want to use. And then at the top of that pyramid, at the point, because there are so few, there are certainly post-secondary programs, but only 2 four-year liberal arts colleges devoted exclusively to students who learn differently. Landmark is one of them, and it's right in your backyard. The other, if you can't bear Vermont winters, is Beacon College in Florida. Both of these colleges offer a completely traditional liberal arts curriculum, as rigorous and challenging as anything you'll find at any college or university you're exploring. What sets them apart is not the curriculum, it's the way in which it's delivered. Universal design is key, and also the kinds of supports they offer. Both accommodations and beyond access supports are embedded in the natural teaching and functioning of these institutions. As important as knowing what services a college offers, how comprehensive they are, also you want to ask about who's providing the services. There are many situations in which a peer mentor is perfect. However, there are situations in which a trained specialist would be able to offer more in terms of teaching students in the way in which they learn. Most of the time, services are provided by peer tutors and faculty who, while having total grasp of the content, haven't been trained to teach unique learners. I'm going to take just a second. Amy, are there any questions? Okay, I'll continue. One of the things to be aware of is that the legal landscape changes dramatically as a student goes from high school to college. In high school, the law that states what your rights are is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA, and also Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. In college, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act in addition to Section 504. But more important than knowing the names of the laws is how do they affect students? So K to 12, the IDEA is a federal law of entitlement. It looks at education as a right, and every student is entitled to a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment possible. The school district is actually responsible for identifying students who are in need of support because the school district is actually responsible for student success. So schools will evaluate students who have learning differences and disabilities. They cover the costs of the evaluations. And based on the results of those evaluations, they develop IEP or 504 plans to meet the student's needs. The IEP in particular is legally binding. Annual meetings must be held to review the plan, to formulate the plan for the coming year. On the basis of an IEP, students can receive a modified curriculum in high school, and IEPs also require, by law, formal transition planning for all students. Now your student is leaving high school, they're going to college. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a federal civil rights law. It's there to provide equal access to people in all areas of public life, regardless of a disability. It does not look at education as a right, and students gain admission to a college or a university solely on the basis of academic merit. And there's a very good reason for that. Professors in college do not alter curriculum the way it can be altered in high school. In a degree-seeking program, the IEP and the 504 plans from high school have no legal weight whatsoever. They are good for demonstrating the kind of services your student has received, but they do no more than that. The college will not seek out students who may be in need of services, who may need support. This now falls entirely to the student. So if a student wants to receive accommodations, they are going to need to disclose and provide whatever documentation a particular college requires, and that can vary from institution to institution. Fewer than 50% of colleges and universities will accept an IEP or a 504 as standalone documentation. The biggest change is that because students are 18 when they get to college, parents who may have been incredibly involved in their students' education up to that point can no longer be involved in the same way. So students are going to take responsibility for directing the course of their education, and they are going to need to advocate for themselves. That is a huge change. So how do you prepare for that kind of transition? The time to start preparing is while your students or you students are still in high school. Be involved in your plan meetings, whether it's a 504 or an IEP plan. If you can, students should take charge of the meeting and actually lead the meeting, but at the very least, speak to how the supports they're receiving are working. Are they effective? What more might they want? When you get to college, you will need to be able to not just understand your learning difference, but be able to articulate it. And the more experience you get doing that while you're in high school, the more confidence you'll have when you sit before disability services in college, and the more effective a student will be. The other piece of a smoother transition is making sure you match your needs, what you're looking for in your college, with what the college offers, but not just what the college offers, what they really deliver on. Again, access impacts success. There are always a lot of questions about disclosing. When I first started getting those questions, both from students and from their families, I started wondering some of the reasons that disclosing was something so many people felt hesitant about. So there are a lot of reasons, it turns out, that students may be hesitant to disclose. For many, they have had an identity all through school that is closely tied to their learning difference, and they may be looking forward to an opportunity to establish an identity in college that's totally independent of that. They may be concerned about stigma. Will they be perceived by other students as lazy, or perhaps as getting an unfair advantage if they get accommodations like extra time for testing? They may also be concerned about how faculty will perceive them. Some students don't disclose because they're not sure what services are available or how to go about getting them. But the most detrimental reason students don't disclose is that they often underestimate just how important these accommodations are to their success. I have spoken to students who may have had a diagnosed learning difference when they were younger and they feel like they outgrow it. The important thing to know is these differences are neurologically based and you don't outgrow them. What hopefully happens instead is that you learn to leverage strengths to meet those challenges. But college isn't the time to let go of support if you've been receiving it in high school. Not only is the curriculum more rigorous, but the executive function demands of college are so far beyond anything students have experienced in high school. And balancing free time with study, support time, social activities can be really challenging. In the end, when you disclose is a matter of preference. I prefer to disclose early because I think it gives you the best opportunity to evaluate not just the college's services, but the attitude of the school towards students with learning differences. And also, how easy or hard it is to get an appointment with disability services to talk before accepting admission. Will tell you a certain amount about that team at a particular college. You may be concerned that disclosing before you gain admission might prevent your being admitted. A couple of thoughts about that. One is, I know it's against the law. That doesn't mean it never happens. But if a college were to deny admission to an otherwise qualified student on the basis of a learning difference, is that a college that you could count on to provide the support necessary for student success? When you evaluate disability services, a good place to start after that inner journey I spoke about is reviewing the IEP or 504 plan. What is on those plans? Is everything being used? If you're the student, which ones do you think are important? Compare that to what your teachers' input is, your parents as well, and then come up with a final list. Then you're ready to start investigating. You can explore college websites, putting in searches like best colleges for students with dyslexia or autism or ADHD will turn up really great information. And when you're exploring those websites, make sure you're looking at both disability services and universally available services, because you're going to be using, in all likelihood, a combination. Get in touch with admissions and disability services, request more information, find out where disability services is located on a campus. I have talked to students who have told me that at their college, disability services is located far outside the physical mainstream of the campus, which frequently means that even for students who access accommodations, they don't continue to use them. Another great source of information is the K&W Guide, which you can get from bookstores, you can get from your library. It's devoted exclusively to colleges and the services that they provide for unique learners. The appendix is particularly useful because it groups colleges according to the level of service they provide. If you or your student is going to be going to a traditional college, be aware that that whole accommodations process is an ongoing thing. It isn't one and done. Students should meet regularly with the appropriate person, discuss how those accommodations are working, make sure that they're continuing to provide access. If access is diminished at any point, go back to self-advocating for more. The process in traditional colleges goes something like this. You, every semester, bring a letter from disability services to each and every professor. You have to get it signed off within what is usually a few-week period of time. If you miss that deadline, you miss accommodations for that whole semester. So It can be a cumbersome process, but knowing that it's going to be ongoing from the start can make it easier to work with.
Ferne, do you have a second for a quick question?
Absolutely.
Asher would like to know what the name of that book was again.
It's the K&W Guide to Colleges for Students with Learning Differences. I have found it on Amazon right now. The 15th edition is out. I always like to advise people to get the most recent edition that they can, but it's also available at libraries. Anything else, Amy? No, okay. Moving forward here. Please, again, feel free to ask questions. Up till this point, I have spoken about College Fit in terms of support, but clearly there's much more to consider. Student life and campus connectedness. In college, so much of the learning happens outside the classroom and outside of academics. So you want to make sure that student life, whatever college or university you choose, is rich and full, that it will nurture the passions students already have, but also give them the opportunity to explore new things that they haven't tried before and develop new interests, new passions. What is the culture of the campus like? Is it inclusive? Is it welcoming? How does the campus look at students who use disability services, students who have learning differences? Does a college offer social pragmatic support? For students who are on the autism spectrum, that may be the real key. Many students on the spectrum don't struggle with academics, but they need to develop greater social skills, skills to develop and maintain relationships, to communicate with peers and professors alike, to develop romantic relationships on campus. So social pragmatic support can be really important. What about mental health services? Even when you find a good college fit, college can be very stressful. Many students are away from home for the first time, making decisions and having a level of independence and responsibility they haven't experienced before. In addition, we've all had a pretty rough couple of years, needless to say. Last December, the Surgeon General came out with an urgent advisory to address the mental health crisis we're seeing in children, adolescents, and young people. While that certainly pre-existed COVID, it has been worsened by the pandemic. And the most vulnerable populations have felt the most negative effects. People with disabilities are a vulnerable population. So make sure that mental health services are readily available, easily accessible. At Landmark, 60% of our students use a counselor from Student Health Services, either at some point or during a semester or throughout the school year. COVID-19, I'm hoping we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that doesn't need to be so important a factor in your considerations if you're thinking about going out of state. But one thing you should know is because of the pandemic, many colleges haven't met their admissions targets, which means they don't have the amount of revenue that they were budgeted to have. So certain programs, certain services are going to be on the chopping block. Make sure that the things that are important to you are not in danger of being cut. Ask lots of questions. Some of these I've already addressed, but can a student take a reduced course load? For a student who struggles with executive function in particular, that can make for a much easier transition. Are there services both in and out of the classroom? Is assistance one-to-one or in a group? Is there a fee for service structure? What documentation is required? Again, remember, you and your family are going to be responsible for providing it. Is the college test optional? So many students, neurotypical and neurodiverse, don't best showcase their abilities on standardized testing. If you are one of those students, know that more and more colleges all the time are test optional. What are the college's retention, graduation, and placement rates for students with learning differences? What's important to know is that you should feel free to ask lots and lots of questions. Finding a college that not only meets your need for support, but provides the kind of student life experience you're looking for is both possible and really important to student success. I'm sure you've all heard and know how important the college visit is. The good news is colleges are open to be visited in person once again. That wasn't always true during COVID. But get a feel for the experience. Visit colleges. Talk to students who are using the kind of services you want to be using. If you're a parent, ask the college to connect you with parents of current students. You should feel free to ask as many questions again as will make you comfortable that you're making a good choice. At the same time that you have the ability to visit in person, you know, colleges are maintaining their virtual experiences, both virtual tours, conversations, and open houses, which are even fuller, more rich experiences. So if you take advantage of virtual and in-person visits, you will be able to experience more colleges than you ever could if you visited each one in person. And then be aware that college isn't always the right next step for every student. There can be a variety of reasons why, but sometimes it's about independent living skills or executive function. But if you feel that college isn't the best next step, know that there are so many wonderful transition programs out there. Transition programs tend to offer more outside the classroom support, life coaching, independent living skill development, financial management, occupational therapies. They can help students prepare for another kind of next step. And at the same time, many partner with a nearby college, university, or tech program to provide an academic component. Gap years are wonderful opportunities. Students who learn differently may be ready for good reason for a break from academics. So if a gap year is what your student is interested in, make sure that it's an opportunity for growth. It can involve travel, volunteering, job internships and training. I can tell you from an admissions point of view, if we see a student who has experienced a real growth opportunity during that gap year, we welcome them. We know that they come to college more mature, self-motivated, and really prepared to take on the challenges of college. The one thing I would say if your student is interested in a gap year is go through the college application process while they're still in high school, and then make sure that the colleges they're applying to will allow them to defer.
And we have a couple questions in the chat.
Good.
Where does one find who offers transition programs?
So I've got some really great resources. I am wondering, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, Amy, of mine. Can I post resources? Is there a place that after today I can post resources? Because there's a variety of resources I can make available for transition programs. The other thing that I would say about that is Amy will be posting my contact information in the chat at the end of this session. And you can also feel really free to reach out to me to continue the conversation, and we can either meet or email back and forth, and I can give you more resources for that very thing.
And then on the same topic, and I don't know if we've answered this already, but I'll let you make that decision. Can
Okay.
you elaborate on the transition process?
I need more information.
Yeah.
Can we get a little bit more information about the question itself?
Why don't you keep going, and I'll see if Jennifer could update her question a little bit, and we'll go back to it.
So I'll keep going, because right now what I'm going to do is a very short segment about Landmark and what that kind of support looks like. And then at the end of that segment, I'm going to open it back up to questions both in the chat and you can unmute. So let's go back to that one when we have a little bit more information. So Landmark, a college exclusively for students who are neurodiverse. So our students may have language-based disabilities like dyslexia, they may have ADHD, they may be on the autism spectrum. I've already mentioned that the curriculum at Landmark is completely traditional, completely rigorous. As a matter of fact, US News and World Report for the third consecutive year has named us to the top spot in 2 categories, most innovative college and best undergrad teaching. Some fast facts: we're in Putney. The campus is a beautiful 125-acre campus. We have about 450 students from roughly 38 states, 12 different countries. The student to faculty ratio is 6:1. That's unheard of in post-secondary education. But what that means is even more important. The average class size is 8 to 12 students. There is no such thing as a lecture class at Landmark. We offer 11 associate and bachelor's degree programs, a range of concentrations. 40% of our students are still transfer students. And that's something that I always feel really sad about personally, because what that means is that their first and sometimes second and third college experiences were not successful, were not a fit. So they come to Landmark looking for a better college experience. 65% is a really important number. At the beginning of the session, I mentioned that fewer than 60% of all college students nationwide and only about 1/3 of neurodiverse students succeed in earning the degree that they're pursuing. Students who come to Landmark and stay at least through an associate's degree, 65% go on to earn the degree that they're pursuing. So we've really moved that needle. There are many ways to engage with Landmark, many different paths. Some of them are degree programs, some are shorter term. For high school students, juniors and seniors, we have an online dual enrollment program. You can use Vermont vouchers, by the way, to pay for that program. Unlike other programs, it's more than about just earning 3 transferable credits. Students are being taught by faculty who know how to teach unique learners and know how to help them develop skills and self-advocacy to have a smoother transition to college. Also for high school students, we have summer programs like the one Erin enrolled in that again helps students build skills. During the school year, some of our short-term programs are Bridge Experience, which is a 1 or 2 semester experience at Landmark for students who know that they want to be at another college for their degree, but want to use Landmark to provide a really strong foundation for learning. TAC, Transition at College, is a program devoted, it's a 1-year program devoted exclusively to students who are working primarily on executive function in 3 different realms: academic executive function, independent living skills, and interpersonal relationships. Some of our students use our associate degree as a short-term program, getting gen ed requirements done in a supportive and skill building setting. And then of course we have bachelor's degrees. Perspectives in learning is something I consider the cornerstone class, and all of our students, whether they're transfer or first-time college students, take this in their first semester. In Perspectives in Learnings, students dive in to their own learning profile, get a better sense of who they are as learners. They look at their testing and evaluations, they research their diagnosis. The goal again is to come out of this with the ability to be effective self-advocates and to know what skills and strategies will help them succeed. And this is something that they're going to use not just while they're in college, but after college as well. I already told you a little bit about the community at Landmark. When you get 450 students who are all working on a challenge, what you find is a community that is welcoming, inclusive, supportive, a community in which nobody is standing on the outside looking in. Everybody knows and feels that they are an integral part of this very dynamic learning community. Embedded in our campus is the Landmark College Institute for Research and Training. We are the only college in the whole country that has a research institute devoted specifically to neurodiversity right on campus. And so the Institute is on the cutting edge of research that's changing the way students are taught, not just by our educators at Landmark, but worldwide, and is changing the results. Landmark also, through the Institute, offers students opportunity to participate in this research. A recent grant from the National Science Foundation had Landmark students working on developing a virtual reality education game designed to improve access to STEM for students on the spectrum. Our Center for Neurodiversity celebrates neurodiversity as a strength, which is at the very foundation of the philosophy of Landmark. We know that it is unique minds who have had unique ways of looking at things and solved problems that were previously unsolved. We also have centers for diversity and inclusion that celebrate diversity in all of its forms. And for all of the ways that we are unique, I want to assure you that student life on campus is completely traditional. We have sports, speaker series, social events, clubs and organizations, trips off campus. Landmark also has its own study abroad, 3-week trips during winter and summer breaks where our students go to exciting places like Botswana, Costa Rica, Japan, the UK, participating in really wonderful hands-on learning opportunities. Support at Landmark is fully integrated and comprehensive. There are no additional fees. Every student meets weekly with their advisor, which is one reason I can say with 100% confidence, no student at Landmark ever slips through the cracks. Our advisors are also executive function coaches. More one-to-one support is available through faculty office hours and also at the Drake Center for Academic Support, which is different than the support centers on other campuses in that it's not staffed by peer mentors. It is staffed by faculty and trained professionals. Educational technology is available to our students. Counseling is available at no additional charge from student health services. Strong residential supports are in place. Students delight, and not just students, but faculty and staff as well, in our therapy dog program. We have 9 certified dogs on campus, and students who want to spend alone time with one of those dogs can do that because we joke our dogs have office hours and you can take them for walks and do various other things one-to-one with our animals. We have incredible social pragmatic support for students who are on the spectrum. If any of you have that as a particular concern, I'm happy in a few minutes to go into that in more detail, if you let me know that. And then we have career connections. You know, it is not enough for students to get a degree from their years in college. We need to prepare students for what happens after college. And Career Connections is the team at Landmark that does that. They have employment readiness experiences for our students expressly tied to neurodiversity. They have established relationships with employers throughout the world. And we have codified agreements with some big companies like JP Morgan Chase, Ernst & Young, Dell, Hasbro. These companies come to campus, interviewing our students to fill meaningful internships. By the way, all of our bachelor's degree students are required to do an internship. And these same companies are also providing employment opportunities for our students after college. So I am going to now stop sharing these slides. I know that that was a lot of information in a really short period of time. But I want to encourage more questions either through the chat or through unmuting your mics. Did we get more clarification, Amy, about that one question about transition?
No, but I mean, but we did have one more question. Does Landmark offer transition programs? So
it depends on what you mean by transition programs. So I consider our high school programs, both dual enrollment and the summer program, transition programs so that they prepare students for transition. They are not college programs. We don't have an undergraduate transition program per se, but transition at college, TAC, is that kind of a program. It's an undergrad program. Students are earning college credits, but they're taking fewer classes. They're taking 2 classes because they're spending an incredible amount of time with very intensive support developing that executive function skill that I talked about. In transition at college, parents have more communication with staff about progress, and also in that program, students are getting exposed to work, to themed topics like health and wellness, money management. The goal of that program is during the year, it's a year-long program, students develop a real understanding of the right next step. So it's kind of a PG gap year transition program hybrid that comes with college credit.
that's all I see in the chat for right now.
So we've got about 10 more minutes before they close this room. So would any of you like to unmute and ask questions? Just know that the recording will not show you on camera. It's a speaker view only. So if that makes you more comfortable, please feel free to unmute. This period of silence while we wait. Well, if there are no more questions, Amy, can you go ahead and post my contact information in the chat? Again, I really want to encourage you to reach out because I'm happy to talk to families and students alike about the general part of this session, which is the college search, and also specifics about Landmark. And I see we do have a question.
Yeah, and I'm pasting right now for everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the questions are coming in. 2 questions came in, and I really only saw the first one, which was about the cost of tuition. So Landmark is a private institution. The cost of tuition, room and board, and everything, and don't let it make you guess because I will follow that up with how you support that, is about $75,000. However, all the kinds of federal aid available to all students is available. And we have a great deal of institutional aid available to students as well. So institutionally, we do straight need-based aid determined by the estimated family contribution from the FAFSA, but we also have other sources of funds. There is a Presidential Council Scholarship, which can look at things beyond need and can give families up to another $10,000 a year of support. We have endowments and scholarships designed for particular situations and for students who are taking particular courses of study like STEM. There is also for students who return after first year, another source of funds called the Presidential Persistence Scholarship, which acknowledge that repeated years can require continued financial commitments from families, which is challenging. So it opens up additional sources of funds. So we work really, really hard with students to make a landmark education possible.
Okay,
There
the
was
next,
another- Go on.
yeah, there's a few questions, so I'll just pop them out for you. Is there a summer program for my 504 student with executive function disorder that would help her prepare for the challenges of college?
Yes, the summer high school program. The summer high school program is designed to do exactly that. And if you go on Landmark site and click on summer sessions, you will find a high school program with 2 tracks, a traditional track and a social pragmatics track. Both of them are helping students understand who they are as learners and develop skills which include executive function. That's a really big part of it that will serve them when they get back to high school first. And students do successfully bring a lot of their new skills back to high school with them in the fall, but will also serve them further on. The other thing that will also help is our online dual enrollment program, which juniors and seniors are eligible for. There's the stated curriculum in everything Landmark does, but there's always that hidden curriculum. And a lot of that hidden curriculum is about executive function. One other program that can be relevant for students, after you graduate from high school and you've already been accepted at a traditional college in the fall, there is a program called the College Readiness Program, which is specifically designed to prepare unique learners for using disability services and going to a traditional college where they'll be getting accommodations. So there are actually a variety of programs that will help your student prepare.
All right, and Jean asked a follow-up question to the tuition question that she had earlier. If you work at UVM and have a tuition remission,
so I need to take a look at who we have those kinds of reciprocal agreements with. And I don't know offhand. If you feel comfortable giving Amy or me your email, I would be happy to email you with the answer to that question. Do you have that email, Amy, automatically from somebody logging in?
I do not, but Jean also has your email because I posted it in the chat. So feel free to send Ferne an email and you can get the conversation started if that's any easier.
Yeah, I will look it up for you. And if you send me an email, I will send you back what I find out.
Awesome. And then we had one more question. It looks like we only have 5 more minutes left. I'm also going to post in the chat a link for a survey. So if you have just a few minutes, it only takes like maybe 3 minutes to fill out the survey. That link will be in the chat for you, and we really appreciate your feedback. And then for the next, maybe last question, any particular ideas in reference to receiving support for dysgraphia?
Yes, Landmark. Any dysgraphia is something we see in a lot of our students. If you would like me to start a conversation with you about resources outside of Landmark, please send me an email and I will get you some additional resources. But many of our students at Landmark don't have a single diagnosis. I mean, it's really common to have a variety of diagnoses, and we see dysgraphia, dyscalculia, I mean, a variety of diagnoses.
Okay.
So there is a lull. Amy, during this lull, I want to thank you for moderating and for giving me the questions. And I want to thank all of you who have attended. I appreciate that. And I am eager to provide more help should you decide that that is something you want.
Wonderful presentation, Fern. I learned so much today, and I appreciate you coming and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Really
Well,
wonderful.
thank you very much. And from the people putting thank yous into the chat, it was my pleasure, truly.
Yes. And to the audience, thank you, thank you. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So yay. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us. And you have Fern's contact information, and we hope to hear from you.
Have a great Saturday. Bye.